The transmission just ended, so hopefully this comes through good. We're hoping. We're hoping. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. We're on a take two situation here. We had a failed broadcast the first time up. Things are going great, though. Things are going great. I can't complain. Who could complain? Every day walking with Christ. But was it an accident? We'll be talking about that. Cyber attack, power on the ship went out twice before the collision. Yeah, maybe. I don't know anything about that. Good morning, Deb. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Another day and Bitcoin is live. It sure is. Richard King, greetings and salutations. B for victory. Bon matin. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Cal, good afternoon from Ethiopia. We love when we get Ethiopian visitors here, Cal. We love it. Good day, team. Good day, Enmity. Hope you're doing well. Christine, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for either reposting your comments, because that thing that happens now that I don't like, I see them for a split second, not even fast enough to read them. And the minute I convert to going live, they just disappear. So it's a scam. I'm getting scammed, but that's okay. Bitcoin graffiti. Yo, 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 yo. This all might just push me towards using the Rumble Studio anyway. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, but I appreciate the comments. Let me go see how the Rumble broadcast is doing and get to some of those comments, and then we'll get right into this morning's breakup. A lot going on, huh? A lot going on. We got a ton of people in that room. Things are going great. Hello, Don Bully. Drew says, hard money. This is just getting interesting. Sluggo, good afternoon, folks. Vito, good morning. Don Bully, I guess people are saying in the future, remember when we got Bitcoin for $70,000? That was cheap. And I'll be saying, remember when I started sacking at 20K, Vito says. It's fun. It's fun. Dexter Wales, posted before you went live, and it showed great. Great. It should no. You guys see it. I don't see it, Dexter. That's the problem. I don't see it. Oh, this one. Well, hold on, Dexter. This one, your first comment came up after I went live and the broadcast crashed. It did crash this morning, sort of right when I started. So, which I don't understand either. I get a lot of bandwidth here. Good morning from Glacier National Park. Aren't you lucky? Wow, at this time of year too. Must be amazing. I'm starting to get anxious for the cool air up north and spring. It's a little too cool where I'm from, but we're heading out soon. We've only got 3 weeks left here. And then the Breakup studio heads back north. I got a good studio in Montreal this year, so we're going to be good, and I'm going to put some time and effort into making the Vermont studio the best, the actual best. So there you go. Hard to beat this studio, though. Except when Rake Guy and Power Wash Guy and all of our cast of characters are around. The boat from yesterday is still there. He never moved it. He just power washed it, and it's just sitting there. It hasn't moved 1 inch. But anyway, you're not here for boat updates or technical updates or what's going on with the comments or none of that stuff. You're here for fake news, and I got some great stuff. But let's start with an acknowledgement, right? We all got to just acknowledge a lot of crazy shit going on today. Let's just take a minute, right? Let's do the Huberman breathing method, right? You know, Huberman, right? We're going to talk about him. He's a guest character in Moscow Time today. Dr. Huberman, right? What's the Huberman technique? It's the 2 deep breaths and long exhales, right? You ever seen that? 2 times. The Huberman technique, right? That'll help us all. We just got to acknowledge we got a sunrise, right? Things are looking beautiful. And Bitcoin's running, everyone. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Robert says, waiting for seagulls. We do not have seagulls this far south. No seagulls around here. Occasionally, one will show up, but it will be an orphan from a boat. So there's no seagulls around here. 0. Pigeons, yes. That's about it. That's about it. Here for the boating accident. As I said, we have so many boating accidents. Then Mountain View background. I'm going to try something new, Bitcoin Deb. So when I get back, I'm going to be using a separate screen so that I can... I tried that last year, but I think I figured it out now how to use the screen. so that I can do references to some of the stories that I'm talking about. I won't do it on Moscow time because it screws up the comedic timing, but I will do it for most of the stories. I did it for a while last year where I would put the thumbnail up behind me so you'd see the thumbnail as we did the show. This time, what I'm going to do is the screen. I think I can rig it so that you see outside, so that I can play around a little bit with the lighting and you'll have a better view outside. And the tower I'm in Montreal has a very excellent view of the city and the skyscrapers and the distance and all that. So that will be easy. And I'll do the same thing in Vermont. So you'll probably get a video feed that will look like a window, but it won't be a window. And the window will change from outside to the stories that I'm covering. So I think it'll work. We'll see. That's where we're headed with the production of everything. But that's boring stuff. Let's get into the fun stuff. We have some great Moscow time today, right? We got some great Moscow time. This comes from the Daily Mail. This is about Shakespeare. Shakespeare has made theater too white, male, heterosexual, and C-gender, claims new taxpayer-funded study. And one of the best things that, I don't know if you know this, but because they didn't have women actors back in Shakespeare's time, it was just men. One of the themes in like a ton of Shakespeare plays are cross-dressing males and trans people. Like, do you know how many plays in Shakespeare? 12th Night. It goes on and on. It's nothing but cross-dressing folks. And then if you want to get into the race thing, has there ever been a better king type character than Othello? Like, he's amazing. So Shakespeare, probably the most interesting transvestite playwright of all time. I don't think there's ever been a bigger transvestite playwright in the history of the world. So, but he's into the C-gender apparently. There you go. This one's great. This comes from, we got a lot of Minnesotans in here. I don't know if Jevy's around, but this comes from your Attorney General in Minnesota. He says, "We are investigating 2 automakers. Their cars are too easy to steal." It's the car companies, guys. Damn buggers didn't make their cars easy enough to steal. It's amazing, amazing. Oh, we got 2 here from Sky News, right? These are both on the pandemic and the big pharma. We get Sky News saying next pandemic is around the corner, expert warns. But would a lockdown ever happen again? Read more. Let's combine that with the following from CNBC. Pfizer is betting big on cancer drugs to turn business around after COVID decline. Here's what to know. They're betting big on cancer, guys. More cancer, please. Pfizer says more cancer. Now, this one's an oldie. It's a blast from the past, but we saw with Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever they call him these days. I used to like his music. This is a bit of shocking, but people have seen it coming for a while, right? People have been saying for a long time that Puff Daddy was a human trafficking rapist, right? So he's a human trafficking rapist. We saw what happened yesterday. I guess he did a white Bronco airplane Gulfstream out of America and ended up somewhere in the Caribbean. So he's around here. I guess he got away, but both of his houses were raided. And apparently, like I said, he is a human trafficker. What did the alleged human trafficker say a couple of years ago about Trump? This is an oldie but a goodie. This is from CNN. The alleged human trafficker, Sean Diddy Combs, says, white men like Trump need to be banished. He needs to be banished. Well, someone got banished. This one's great. This is from Salon. Salon really is like a cut above when it comes to fake news. They're an excellent source of fake news. Here's what they say about Trump yesterday. Forensic psychiatrist on psychological signs of Trump's mental decline. Changes in movement and gait. His walk appears wide-based. Dr. Elizabeth Zoffman notes of Trump, he has developed a swing of the right leg. You know what Tucker always says? Projection, right? This is one of the great examples of projection you'll ever see in the fake news. It's just excellent. Now, we got our last one. This is from our Huberman method, right? Our Huberman method. We just did it. We did the breathing. Huberman method, right? From New York Magazine. This is what they say. Falling for Dr. Huberman, the private and public seductions of the world's biggest pop neuroscientist. He's a pop neuroscientist, everyone. Andrew Huberman's mechanisms of control, the private and public seductions of the biggest pop neuroscientist. We have pop neuroscientists now, guys. Glenn Greenwald addressed this fake news story, and he says, I never listened to Andrew Huberman and know little about him, but I kept reading this endlessly gossipy article in this shit magazine, waiting for even a single revelation about his private adult life that merited public interest or knowledge, and never found a single one. Very, very good. Very, very good. All right. So in other news, and this isn't, this is the tragedy now of what happened last night in Baltimore. If you guys haven't seen the images, very Atlas Shrugged. You see a huge container ship hit one of the support structures, part of the superstructure. So the piece that supports the larger superstructure above the middle of the bridge hits it, and the whole bridge collapsed almost instantly. I mean, the whole bridge is down, and it's like a many mile long bridge, right? I don't know how long exactly it is, but I had the details on it, but I don't think I kept that image. Very long bridge. It falls. The main superstructure comes down. Another part falls. Then the piece that's on a cantilever swings up, and that falls. There were cars on it. I mean, you can watch the 2 minutes before, and you're just saying, like, get out, get out, get out. These semi trucks are going over. It's a actual real life disaster. I mean, it looks like luckily it happened late at night, and there aren't a lot, or not nearly as many dead bodies as there ought to be. But it is indeed one of the saddest things you're going to see today. So now a lot of people are wondering. Now it's early in the morning, and I don't know, right? I don't know if any of this is true. I have no clue. I don't know anything about being the captain of a ship, piloting a ship through a port. So I have zero knowledge about that. But some people are making comments. Ben Rickert says here, port captains don't make mistakes like this. The amount of open space he had to navigate through that bridge, I seriously doubt this was an innocent accident. So that's Ben Rickert saying that. Mario Nawfal put up a comment saying maritime experts. So asking the question, Baltimore bridge collision, mechanical or human error? The first thing that springs to my mind was the sudden fault with the ship's engines or the steering gear. The other, of course, was there a navigational error? There should be no room for one person's errors, because one of the people should jump in and say, hang on. The most likely cause of this is a failure in machinery or steering gear, but we just won't know until the authorities have been on board. And even then, we're unlikely to say what's going on for a considerable amount of time. So we're not going to know. We're just not going to know. It looks, but look, you can sort of hypnotize yourself into seeing it that way. I mean, look at this picture with what's her name yesterday, the singer, Taylor Swift. Everybody jumping to the conclusion that she's yelling at her boyfriend. Someone did a candid shot of them in the Bahamas, and she's yelling looks like she's yelling, but I showed it to my wife. She's like, well, she could be complaining about the salad. Who knows? I mean, you really don't know, right? Now, you'll see in it whatever you want to see in it, because we're all primed to have these biases. So people who don't like Taylor Swift and think she's some kind of, crazy woman will see that. Now, other people who are fans are like, she's probably just emphasizing some story she's telling him, and we're probably reading way too much into the picture. So again, your biases will be confirmed by what you see. And structure hit. Yeah, well, it hits the super tower. The superstructure above has the two pieces that go into the water. I forget what they're called. I know that the caissons, the caissons were invented. Caissons, like the bubble of air you put in to dig deep into the ground to put these foundations of a bridge. And they were invented for the Brooklyn Bridge. No, so was most diving, and they discovered what the bends were. The bends being, if you spend too much time underwater, you can go a little crazy, and you can get the air. I guess it's like air or something that goes into your brain. I don't know exactly what happens with the bends, but I know that the person who designed and built the Brooklyn Bridge was unable to stand for the rest of his life and had to sit in a room looking at the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge because he couldn't walk anymore. A lot of what we understand of diving comes from building the Brooklyn Bridge. So that's what, they learned about caissons and sinking the bubble of air and using that bubble of air to go down and dig deeper to put a foundation of a bridge in. So it was that piece that got hit, right? Now, here's what we know, right? We are no longer, just like with the the princess's cancer, and just like a million of these stories, right? The president of France's wife, all of these stories will always now spin into all kinds of narratives because there is absolutely no trust left in the system. There is no ability for a narrative to be set that people agree on for any of this stuff. COVID had a lot to do with this. Ever since COVID, everyone has been seeing the same facts, the same events, but a completely different narrative interpretation of it. We're all succumbing to kind of narrative bias around a lot of this stuff. Now, I don't know anything about what happened with this bridge. I mean, zero, right? And normally I would say never ascribe to malice what can be explained through incompetence. And if you just think of it in terms of a competency deficit, that's where the Atlas Shrugged type of interpretation comes from. So that remains a valid one, right? We can have a valid interpretation. This is the most decrepit city in America. It's worse than Detroit. Baltimore is an absolute, complete, and total shithole. And because of that, who knows who's doing what at the port? Now, I remember watching that show, The Wire. Remember that show, The Wire, right? Isn't it so quaint and funny now? So if you have never seen The Wire, a lot of people in America anyway believe it's the greatest show ever produced. It might be. It's one of my favorites. If you haven't seen it, it's a 5-season show, all set in Baltimore and all focusing on different institutional declines in the city. So it begins with just straight up a warrant. And it's hilarious now when we think about Trump and the FISA warrants, when we think about Edward Snowden, when we think about what's happening today with Julian Assange. I didn't get news before, but you might get it live. If someone can put what happens to Julian Assange in the comments to me today, so I can be aware. I don't know before I went live the decision in the High Court in England to extradite him to America was being made. So we'll find out. So if someone can add that. But going back to The Wire, isn't it so quaint that the whole thing was about getting a wiretap to look into organized crime or the gang crime and drug crimes in a project? So the original first season of The Wire starts in he won the right for an appeal. Okay, great. Thank you. Which is, I mean, as an accelerationist, I kind of hoped they would extradite him to America to stand public trial. Because imagine all that's going on in America right now, plus Assange has a public trial. That would have been interesting. So not easy for Assange. So I obviously want whatever's best for him after all he's been through. But truthfully, what was better for us and the narrative was him being extradited to America to have a public trial. I don't know if he was going to be given a public trial. The worst would be extradited to America and then a closed door trial, which is probably where they were going to head because of state secrets and all this shit. But nevertheless, let's go back to the Wire piece. So The Wire all starts in the projects, and they underline the corruption, institutional decline that led to the projects and all that stuff. The second season is all set at the port where this exact bridge is located and where it fell. You can see the port right behind there. Now, the impression you get from watching season 2 of The Wire is that the entire port is corrupted and filled with incompetency. It's all about union-based corruption and whatever union is at the port and whatever is going on there, and Greek shipping and illegal drug trade. So it connects to what's going on in the inner cities, but uses the corruption at the port to underline all these things. Season 3, if I recall, goes into politics. So the way everything is connected, but they have a highlight and a focus every season on different institutional decline. So the projects and social housing and all that stuff, the ports. Then I think they go to the actual elementary school system in the next season. One of them hits the elementary school. One of them hits the voting system, how corrupt the elections are. So it's a pretty interesting story, right? It just talks about all these different institutional declines. I might be forgetting one, but I think there were 5 seasons. Anyway, the point is, what I learned from season 2 and the corruption of the ports is the Atlas Shrugged model could probably apply here too, right? Now, I know we're in a fog of war and it's very difficult to judge what's going on exactly, but the idea that there is no competency left in that port that could lead to such an accident is completely realistic, right? So normally, though, I would say don't ascribe to malice what you can ascribe to incompetence. Like that's sort of a idiom you should live by, but not in the environment we're in anymore, because there's literally no ability to trust institutions. We're living in a complete fog of wartime, And it is now impossible to have any firm conclusions about any of this stuff. We have to live in a type of quantum state, and we have to take information in as it comes, right? So indeed, we just don't know. We just don't know what happened there. But what we do know is that legacy media and whatever they say, and whatever, just like this person said, we have to wait for the authorities to investigate and then tell us what happened. That's not going to work. Is anyone going to believe them after COVID? After all we've seen, is anyone going to believe any of these people? Of course not, right? So the official story coming out of there is going to be interpreted as a scam by most Americans, whether or not it's true, right? Now, this is a product of this failing trust in particular, the media. Balaji talking about it again today, saying the following: legacy media doesn't get views on their own content anymore. Just look at their tanking engagement. So they need to attack influencers for traffic. If you even yell at them, they get paid. So just ignore to the maximum extent possible and let them fall. They deserve it. And here he shared a graph about the percentage of Americans who say they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in newspapers and television news. And television is now down to 11% of Americans believe it. And this is up from the 1990s, where television is off the charts in the chart that he shared. It's the base in the 1990s is 45%, the highest it goes, and you can see it plummeting from that 45%, right? So already then it was above 45% in the 90s. It's now down to 11. Newspapers are at 16%. So the thing is, they're not going to be able to fix this problem, right? This is an existential crisis for the fake news. This is an existential crisis for centralized media, and it's not getting any better, right? You saw this story yesterday of the former RNC chair who was appointed, who got a job at NBC. Now, here's where it gets really funny, right? Here's what these people are dealing with. Here's their best effort. Here's the fake news's best effort today in 2024. So, the NBC News, who Glenn Greenwald and others have said is absolutely just a deep state proxy. It's not even really a legitimate news source. They hired Ronna McDaniels, the one who Vivek got fired, who said was just terrible, right? So she's gone. NBC hires her. MSNBC says we'll never put her on. She's the worst. Now, imagine the context here. What happened is all these people like Chuck Todd and all these others spend years saying that Ronna McDaniels is an insurrectionist who tried to topple democracy. And now all of a sudden they got to sit next to her. Right? So they had to say lies, or they had to do their AstroTurf narrative for years. But then suddenly, and this kind of proves how fake the whole thing was, right? The executives who knew it was a scam from the beginning, I would imagine, right? Everyone knew that this AstroTurf story was the way it was. But maybe the people who read the news didn't understand that. And now they've got to sit next to what they've already characterized as a Nazi, like an actual Nazi, right? So Malling Hemingway picks up on this, and this is where things get really fun. So he's sitting there saying, and this is what they're all saying on MSNBC, she might say fake stuff, so we're going to, it's the same reason why they don't put Trump on TV. We're going to be spreading misinformation. It's going to be us spreading misinformation if we bring this person on, right? So Malling Hemingway said, Chuck Todd, a dangerous propagandist who pushed the Russia collusion lie for years, trashes his employer and warns about gaslighting and credibility because NBC, which employs Democrat activists Jen Psaki and Kristen Welker, hired a single Republican. So it just goes to show you, and it just should be more proof that none of these people are trying to find anything like objective truth. And because of that, they're absolutely incapable of cultivating trust in their system, which means they're not going to be able to persuade people more, right? And that's the game we're playing right now. We're playing a game of psychological persuasion, manipulation, call it whatever you want, right? Bitcoin, of course, is a psychological commodity, which is why we use it to contrast the psychological engines that it perpetuates versus what dollars perpetuate, right? And that's the big contrast here. And that's why, seeing this story yesterday is one of the funniest things we're ever going to see. It's the Trump bond story. Now, do you know how we know we live in a simulation? Do you know how we know? how is this happening on the same day? How does it happen that on the same day that Trump gets this reduction in his bond? So if you didn't see that yesterday, Trump's bond of $450 million was reduced to $175 million thanks to an appeals court ruling, right? The ruling came out and said that he gets an appeal to the judgment. Let me just get you the actual examples here, right? So Colin Rugg breaks it all down, right? So the funny thing here, though, and this is the simulation winking at us. This is a pure simulation wink. On the same day that Trump has to post this bond, and people are trying to do this thing where he's compromised, he doesn't have money, he's poor, he was never a billionaire. Remember the fake story from last time? He was never a billionaire. Well, it turned out that who knows why, just simulation winking, on the very same day that this money is due, Trump's merger of Truth Social and whatever that other company is, that the Digital World Acquisition Corp, the merger produced this huge $1 billion windfall for Trump. So he's paying it in cash. Right? So this is what Colin Rugg says about it. Donald Trump's net worth jumps to $6.5 billion, making today Trump's single greatest day ever for his wealth. At this very moment, Trump's $175 million bond in the New York fraud case makes just 2.7% of his net worth. The sudden jump in Trump's net worth is thanks to Trump's media merger with Digital World Acquisition Corp. Shares jumped 35% today, and the 29-month-long merger process went through on the same day. On the same day. It's a video game. We're playing a video game here, guys. And of course, we understand what the video game is, right? Stack sats. And I think he's going to come to the same conclusion. So he has a 58% stake in the company that will soon be traded under the DJT ticker symbol. The former president will not be able to cash in any of his shares for about 6 months. His net worth will likely to be more volatile going forward. So here's what Joy Reid said just 2 days ago, right, with her Trump wig on. So she's sitting there with her Trump wig saying Trump is broke. He's begging for money. He can't pay his bond. And Letitia James is about to seize his assets. Today, he's worth $6.5 billion. And the funny thing about it all, I mean, and it's really funny, he weaponized and monetized the evil against him. Imagine. They said, okay, we're going to make you poor. We're going to kick you off Twitter. You're not going to be able to reach people. And then we're going to use the fake news to just run a train of stories, fake news stories through you. And what did he do? He goes and creates his own social media, gets it to be worth billions. And it happens to be able to be, let's say, calculated. And the merger goes through on the very day where they try to spring this trap where he owes extra money. How can anyone believe we're not in a video game at this point, right? Hilarious. So Charlie Kirk saying, what Dems hope for today, Trump could not post a $454 million bond and Letitia James and her goons would begin seizing Trump properties. What Dems got? An appellate court slashed the bond to $175 million. Trump will pay it in cash. Truth Social goes public, making Trump $3 billion. My voice and frame are out of sync. Are they really? Oh no. Is that true for everyone? Just let me know if that is absolutely the case throughout. It shouldn't be. I hope that's not it. I've arrived at the conclusion of many of the broadcast problems are carrier logistics. Yeah, everyone's saying there's a lag between audio and video. 3 to 4 second delay. Jesus. Come on. Motherfuckers. Let me see if there's something I can do. Okay, I changed the definition. And then I'm going to bring it back up. Maybe I'll turn it off for a second and see what happens. Never happened before. Fuck. All right. How about now? Did that fix anything? Instead of your eyes. Tell me if that did anything. I don't know. Because I don't know how to redo the stream. It didn't help. Okay. Just give me a second then. Not yet. All right. Nothing. Still off. Still out of sync. Still. I'm 5 signals. Back of sync. It's like watching a Japanese movie with dubbing. Fuck. All right, guys. I won't be able to fix this then. We'll just do it quick. We'll just get to the end of what we're talking about today, and as if a podcast out of sync. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, today it immediately crashed, and I think whatever happened to in the process of restarting it is what has got us here. What a shame. What a shame. Listen without watching works. Very frustrating. The signal is strong here, so it shouldn't be that. So anyway, the story of him not having money and then all of a sudden he does is hilarious, because it means again that they've been laying this sort of dopamine, right? Like the way the mainstream or legacy media, we can't say mainstream media anymore. I have to make sure I never say that, right? The way the legacy media works in this case is they really try to introduce these narratives just like a movie, right? And they'll say, oh, you're going to get your dopamine when you get the conclusion, and it's going to be Trump loses stuff, right? Do you know how angry people are when they get primed for that kind of a result, and then what happens in the end? It's an obliteration. It's an obliteration. They got obliterated yesterday. They were made liars again to the very people that are inside of their echo chamber. Now, those are the ones that need the dopamine. They're addicted. They are addicted to negative stories about Trump because they've been primed to be addicted to those. They want to hear about his misery and his trouble and all that stuff. Right now, I'm mind reading, but I understand how the brainwashing works with the legacy media, and that's the point, right? You're setting people up for these stories, and we all work with these narrative biases, just as I was saying with the shipping story, right? But the problem is they didn't get the release. There's no release. And because there's no release, and because the more interesting story is actually the one that Trump is experiencing, his life is becoming exactly like a movie. It's a movie, right? He's entering this last stage of a comeback that is only possible. The only reason any of this is possible was because they had to sell more dopamine on their legacy media about how Trump was an insurrectionist. He was going to fail. They were going to put him in jail. They were going to take a shit. They could have just ignored him. They could have ignored him, and it would never have gone anywhere. Imagine, had they just said, you can go on Twitter, you can rant and rave, and da-da-da-da. Imagine that. Imagine in 2020, after he lost the election, and I got annoyed from him crying about the election. We knew it was stolen, but the way he was explaining it was very annoying, right? There was a better way to handle it, and he didn't do it, right? So there was a time in 2020 when we were just like, shut up, right? Shut up. And they could have done that. They could have left him on Twitter and everyone would have got annoyed with him, but they didn't. They chose to kick him off. They chose to engage in lawfare. And now they've put him in a position where everybody loves him again. Everybody feels sorry for what he's going through. Everyone is seeing the exact story, which is what they published today in the New York Post. Dem lawfare puts Trump through hell, but he hardly breaks a sweat. Now that's the real story. All of this stuff that's been done to him, and he's still sitting there kind of laughing. He's still doing his stand-up routine. He's still doing the really funny physical comedy about Joe Biden, talking about the walk, right? The way Salon here is in our fake news story of the day, trying to project that Trump has the walking problem when we can all see that Biden can't get his feet above grass. Like he can't lift his feet above green grass. He looks like he's going to trip. He has to wear those funny old person shoes now, right? It couldn't be better. It just could not be better. So JD Vance saying the following: the Biden administration wants Trump to die in jail, and they want to bankrupt his family. It is the biggest assault on democracy we've ever seen. If you're too cowardly to call it out, you're not ready for this moment in American politics. Which is that even JD Vance, who couldn't be considered an overly large supporter of Trump. He's definitely supporting the Trump presidency and all that, but I wouldn't say he is, you know, a MAGA Republican or anything like that. So there you go, right? The ability for the legacy media to create narratives now on any of this stuff is actually going to be associated, even amongst their own adherents, with disappointment, with a lack of trust. These people are now going to say, you didn't deliver the dopamine last time. You said all this stuff about Trump. We were going to get some blood. We were going to get the pound of flesh. And what did you get? You got Trump laughing at you. Do you know what the worst thing that they could experience is? Trump laughing at them, right? So now, again, we have to bring this back to Bitcoin and do the contrast, which we always love. The point of the fiat system is, and even the definition of the word fiat means dictate. It means decree, right? So in order to, it's word-based money. Government words are the basis of fiat money. And those words propagate the network. And if they do not create any form of consensus, if the legacy media can't propagate the information around the world to the point where we can have some degree of agreed upon facts in the matter, like the boat case, like any of this other stuff, then it just won't propagate forward. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the inability of the psychological engine, right? The psychological engine of fiat money to create secure commercial relationships between people who have a like-minded worldview. It can't do that anymore. Mostly because of the fake news, mostly because they've poisoned everyone's dopamine mechanisms and response system, mostly because they've made people addicted to their type of content. The few that are left addicted to it are like strung out junkies with mental illness. And when they don't get their fix, when they don't get their feed, it's going to shake them up even more, and they're going to lose more adherents. Chuck Todd and all these people don't have the charisma. They don't have the ability. They don't have the storytelling capacity to compete with the story that Trump is able to take on the road now. And a great story, and that's what Bitcoin is a great story about the financial crisis in 2008, about the corruption of media, about the brainwashing mechanisms that we've let infiltrate the American conversation now for 50, 60 years. That whole thing is over, and it will not propagate forward. The amount of capacity required to get back to their level of persuasion that they were at will never be achieved again. They're not capable. They don't have the IQ. They don't have the horsepower to do it. They don't have the storytelling power to do it. And because they don't have the storytelling power to do it, they leave everything open. And you can see it. The 60 Minutes thing this weekend, right? 60 Minutes tried to bring out Kate Starbird. They tried to bring out this misinformation researcher, right? And first of all, I'll tell you a funny story about it. She had this haircut where it's like shaved on one side and then long on the other. So I had this one instance once years ago, and it was an old friend of my wife's sister. And she was like an absolutely vile hipster and coming from London, right? She comes and stays from London, and she had the same haircut. And she had just got, she came with it and then had it freshened up and all this stuff. And just a woke idiot, right? So we're at a thing and I see the haircut and I'm kind of staring at her, right? And I'm looking at this thing. Now, because she caught me staring at her, right? But I didn't move my gaze. I was like, just checking out the haircut, right? And so later on, she tried to tell my wife, I caught him looking at me. And I said, wait a minute. She caught me staring. Yeah. Do you know what you do if it's flirting? You look away, right? You get caught looking, but then you look away. That's what everyone does. If you actually stare, it's because you're contemplating the freak show that you're seeing, right? So I was contemplating a freak show. I was contemplating what goes on in someone's mind. Now, I don't care what haircuts people get. I'm a beach bum. I'm not out here commenting and thinking about it. But to deliberately create that kind of haircut and what it tells the people around you, it to me anyway, created this situation where, you know, I was staring at not an attractive woman. I wasn't flirting with her. If you keep staring, it's because you're looking at a freak and you're contemplating the freak, right? So it's just a little side story, but I believe that to be true in general. If you're staring at someone and it's a flirty thing, you look away, right? You get caught staring and you look away. Boys and girls both do that. Who hasn't done that in their life? Right. And then my wife thought about it when I told her that. She's like, you're right. You know, I was like, why would I keep staring after she noticed I was staring? I was like, did you really go and tell a barber, like, and all this stuff? Right. Is that really what you said? Anyway, that's an aside note. So Kate Starbird with her, not as bad as Joy Reid's Trump wig, but still pretty funny, tries to give this interview on 60 Minutes where they're talking about only 30%, right? So they got community noted. She has only 30% of notes from researchers flagging misinformation got picked up by X. And Elon Musk and the community note said, no, the number's 0. We don't respond to anything you say. And the number's not 30, it's 0. Get out of here. Now, because of people like Mike Benz, right? Again, so the game here really is about competency and ability, and that's the contrast. The legacy media is just too filled with low IQ idiots to compete in the narrative fight that we have. Luckily, we had Mike Benz, who has been persuading us on Kate Starbird for months. You've heard about Kate Starbird 100 times on this show because of Mike Benz. Mike Benz showed us who these players were with his autistic obsession with how this machinery works. I don't know if anyone could have charted this entire Byzantine organization for misinformation and disinformation research, but he did. So he has all the receipts. We have this from August, right? Talking about how the Kate Starbird has been around for a long time. She's been doing the disinformation thing for a while. America First Legal is also suing her. That's the Miller, the Jason Miller. Is that his name? Anyway, the fellow who used to work for Trump, who is running America First Legal, suing people about this stuff all the time. Saying here, CBS is guilty of rank disinformation in this interview. They use Kate Starbird as their expert, but they don't tell you that Starbird is the defendant in our lawsuit alleging a vast scheme to silence speech and deprive Americans of their fundamental civil rights. So Starbird is being sued already, right? Here is Mike Benz again talking about Kate Starbird, one of the chief architects of the mass censorship of the 2020 election and the 2020 midterm. So never forget, COVID and the 2020 elections are the two most censored events in American history. And she's behind them, right? So they bring her onto 60 Minutes. Now, a generation ago, one generation ago, not even a generation ago, 10 years ago, 60 Minutes doing this kind of thing would have completely upended the narrative in America. But what did it do this time around? Nothing. No one cares about Kate Starbird. Everyone just mocked them. It's just mocking, right? And that's what you need, right? That's what you need. Here's him again saying, it's just a researcher in academia, but actually they're literally running the US federal government's misinformation, disinformation advisory committee, talking about all the different groups she works for, right? CISA and all these others. So, and then he's talking here about this article again, right? 60 Minutes writing, after Elon Musk took over X, most fact checkers were fired. The site is now rife with trash talk and lies. This is 60 Minutes. It's rife with trash talk and lies, right? And then they say the toothpaste is out of the tube. Mike Benz saying the following, get back in the tube, you unwashed masses. Everyone get back in your toothpaste tube, you idiots. And then he says, this dude says the other 300 million Americans on the internet are like toothpaste that have to be put back in their tube. How undignified. Wall Street Silver is saying this about Kate Starbird. Kate seems to believe that her opinions represent 100% facts. In reality, she's preaching her ideology, and she is upset that 70% of her opinions are being rejected. This is the 30% thing. Also, why does she think X is obligated to listen to her at all? She can join community notes like everyone else, and she can share her opinions there. So they show her like trying to be thoughtful, and you know all the way they frame it with the legacy media. So it just couldn't be better. Now we also get this, right? We also get the New York Times. They ran a hit piece on Bill Ackman, the one he's been waiting for. But Bill Ackman wrote a response, but he also just tried to get them to fix the details, like the facts of the case, which they got wrong. They got actual facts wrong, not opinion. The New York Times got facts wrong, and Bill Ackman, in their hit piece, tried to underline the facts. And here's what he says. Not only has the New York Times refused to include a link to my response to the article, because I posted in response, it is now refusing to make basic corrections to the article that the reporter had previously agreed to. For example, the reporter's description of a closed-end fund is patently false, and her description of my wife's degree is also incorrect. So out of spite, the New York Times prefers to misinform its readers rather than admit it has made mistakes. To be clear, these are not disputes about opinions. These are disputes about basic facts. Embarrassing and pathetic. Shame on the New York Times. Now, we all know this. We all know this about the New York Times, but now it's becoming obvious to an even wider set of people. Remember, Bill Ackman was one of the main pains in the ass of Trump last time, and he was actually effective. There's very few people who are effective and can land a punch on Trump. Ackman was capable. Now what we see with Ackman is he's gone completely ballistic on the legacy media and academia. Not only that, he's starting to get into Bitcoin. We know that he's going to be meeting with Michael Saylor, or already has met with Michael Saylor. But nevertheless, he understands the game we're in and understands that we do not have a credible media. So it couldn't get better. It could not get better. We're winning. We're winning. All right, so I'm going to cut things short just because this episode sounds like the video is off. I always cut my own. That loon tried to sabotage Nolan. Yeah, tried to sabotage. Luckily my wife was like, "You're right. Why would you be like?" She knows I'm not interested in hipsters with weird haircuts, right? Not that I'm against people being different and letting their light shine, right? Don't hide your light under a bushel. That's not what I'm saying. Go be different. But when it's deliberate and low IQ, then I can call it out, right? It's just bad taste, bad aesthetics. So there you go. Let me see what people are saying on Rumble, and then we're going to cut it short today. We're going to cut it short. All right. The folks on Rumble saying, the out of sync doesn't matter. Don't shorten your podcast because of it. Yeah. Decided to break, so I'm just listening. Yeah. Geez. Not a big deal. Sluggo, I watched this on a computer. I opened it on my phone too, and the video on the phone perfectly syncs with the video on the computer. Sorry, perfectly syncs with the audio on the computer. Okay. I just checking my node after fixing the server, and someone just bought. Whoa, holy cow. How can you see the fiat price on your node? Mike Benz did an interview last night on Rumble channel with Badlands Media. Yeah, I saw a bit of it on. Yeah. I put it in mempool, Don. All right. So that's what we got for today, everyone. That's what we got. That's what we got. Are such little liars and behave like arrogant children. They sure do. Good morning, Vietnam. I love Vietnam. Yeah, it is a really good one. We're going to use that. We're going to steal it, Eastside Tony. We love Vietnam. It's in Nam, man. In Nam. Dana White mentioned Trump being unshakable and absolutely unfazed by all the attacks on him. The only time he's ever heard him out of sorts was when Ivana passed. Oh, really? Yeah. She's from my area, Ivana. She's from the lake, one of the lakes I grew up on. So he would come around there in the olden days. It's a beautiful lake. You've got the Sutherlands who live there. Donald and Kiefer live on that lake on the Canadian side. She lived on the Canadian side as well. She was from the Canadian side of that lake. The U.S. side is very small. It's not Lake Champlain. It's Lake Memphremagog. Gog Magog. Defina says just as bridge connects 2 points, fiat is economy connection. The government is like the ship and Bitcoin like a river. Yeah. Despite bridges and governments crumbling around them, the river continues on. You got it. Listening like radio. Yeah. Oh, I'm being corrected on what the Huberman method is. Take 2 deep inhales and 4 exhales. Yeah, I didn't know that. I usually just do the 2 inhales and the 2 exhales. I didn't have to do it. Not as many noises today. Rig guy was fine. Didn't hear any power washers. Yeah, the reason why I can't do it, guys. The reason why I can't. There was some fucking person in the comments yesterday on YouTube. Oh, get over it. Oh, just entertain me smells like Teen Spirit. Look, here we are now. Entertain us is not the way this thing works. The way my brain works is if I don't know where I'm headed, my mind is already on the next subject. You understand? And when I do this show live, I'm pushing to get to the point where I'm at. If I don't know where I'm going because I can't keep it in my head, I've got to keep this destination in my head. It's the next thing I'm talking about. If I can't keep that in my head, I literally can't talk. You know how hard it is to talk for whatever, an hour every day? You know how hard that is? It's not easy. Okay, it's not easy. And my method, the reason why I'm able to make it easy, it's not that hard. I have a coherent worldview. I can bounce all the news off my coherent worldview, which is why I'm able to do it every day. But nevertheless, if I don't know in the moment where I'm headed, because I can forget, because there's noise that comes in, I can't do it. There's no way. I just can't do the show. So I'm not a robot. I need the right conditions, right? I absolutely need the right conditions. So I hope you all understand it's difficult, right? And if I don't have the right conditions, I can't do it, right? So anyone out there saying, "Oh, just get over it," get the fuck out of here, right? Yeah, look, here in the comments, joke around, but don't come into the comments after the show and say, "Oh, bro, just fucking get over it." Get the fuck out of here, all right? And if I could block that motherfucker, I would. You can't block people on, we do. Yeah, exactly. We don't need to apologize. We are doing this together. Exactly. Like it's I'm trying to make this coffee, not smells like Teen Spirit. Here we are now, entertainment. I'm not here for your entertainment, right? Even though I try to make it entertaining, that's kind of not the point, right? We're trying to work through all of this malaise we have around us. No, I don't want to space. I mean, look, they're a breakup gang like us. I mean, maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe look, maybe they're just not thinking. But I have no patience for it. Literally none. Right? If it was a bunch of people doing that, I wouldn't even do the show. Right? I wouldn't do it. Like I'm not in it for like you could do better, bro. Like I don't want to hear that. Right? And I know, like, I like some input about the quality and how we can make it better, and different studio and all that stuff. But that's how my brain works. I'm incapable. Yesterday, I could not think. I didn't know what I was talking about. We like it raw, yeah, but yeah. I mean, that's the point. I mean, that's it, right? Here we are now. Entertain us, right? No, get the fuck out of here. You're a Bitcoiner, not a fucking dumb NPC. Have some self-respect. I love Newport. Yeah, on the U.S. side of the lake. Yeah, you know about it, Daniel. Yeah, the best views of the lake. The best views are from Newport. Newport, if you're around Newport, it looks like Switzerland. The mountains just collapse right into the lake like a fjord almost. It's absolutely the best. I go to there a lot. It's on the other side of Jay Peak, so it's hard for me to get to all the time. I got to drive around the mountain either way, and the Canadian side is easier because it's through a valley. If I come up, I got to go over the mountain or around that far. Yeah, I can deal with a little bit. I don't need perfect silence or anything. Obviously, I can do it outdoors, but a pressure washer, two-stroke engines have a particular way of boring into my skull, and I can't like I can't, if someone had a weed whacker, the same thing, right? A whippersnipper, as you guys didn't know about, a Canadianism. I love when I find those other ones. This is the best Bitcoin show. Don't change the formula. I'm not going to change it, guys. I had to tell that guy to get the fuck out of there. Don't watch. Like, if it's not entertaining, don't fucking watch. Fuck off. I want it to be entertaining. Like, I do want to entertain the people watching 100%. Right? I wouldn't do it if it's boring. Don't be boring, right? But shit happens, and if you can't do it right, then you got to say it, right? Noise is one of the biggest tools the cabal uses to keep us down. Yeah, it's what I love about Japan, right? Japan is my absolute favorite. I remember my dad called me once when I was in Japan, and I was in a what you call a ryokan, like a Japanese, traditional Japanese inn. and they always have a sauna, a hot tub area, and all that stuff. And my dad called me, and luckily I would never have you can't bring a phone into these places, and you certainly can't have a phone conversation. You can't have a phone conversation in the subway in Japan. You know that, right? Not even a phone conversation. If someone calls you on a phone in Japan, this is a Japanese person, right? He goes, that's the most you're going to see on a subway with people on the phone. They don't do it, right? There's special cars where you can have a phone conversation, but in general, it's absolutely verboten. You can't do that. It's so disrespectful to the other people on the train to have a conversation. On the bullet train, nothing. There's no phone conversations. Like I said, it's mushi mushi and done, right? Quiet whispering, sorry, I'm on the train, don't call me. So if you're in a sauna type situation and a hot tub thing, you can't be on the phone, but it was empty. So I'm on the phone, my dad calls me, and I'm telling him how quiet and peaceful. I'm on a cliff looking in a bay. And I'll never forget, my dad said, the quietness of a place is a sign of civility. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Quebec City, some of you guys should go to Quebec City sometime, and you'll find just the most beautiful, quiet city. I loved living there. I loved it, right? Just amazing. Janet Yellen will send people to power wash every day now. Yeah. Well, this is entertaining. No problem. Was throwing the price we pay for getting to see paradise during Northern Hemisphere winter. Scott Adams was throwing F-bombs at Commons during his coffee yesterday. I didn't see it yesterday. I didn't catch his show. The price we pay for getting to see paradise during. Yeah. Now the Federal Reserve knows your kryptonite, 2-stroke engines. They're going to be gone soon, guys. We're going to get rid of them. One of the great, because 2-stroke engines are enough to make me a fascist and a totalitarian. I want totalitarianism when I hear 2-stroke engines. Like I cheered on. Get them. All right. It's the only thing that will keep me out of being a non-violent, peaceful person. Not being able to focus on it is a sign of intelligence, but it means your thinking is deep. Could be. I don't know if that's true. I think some people can do it a different way. I mean, we're all a little different, right? But in my case, if I don't, when you do it without a script and you speak for an hour like this, if you don't know where you're headed, like that's how I do my notes. I take the pictures of the screenshots of the stories, I put them on paper, I see a pattern, I put them in order, and then that order is how I push through. Right, I keep the next one in my head because each one of them drives to the next point. Sometimes there's a more clear break. I say, okay, I have to use this to pivot, right? But that's all I basically memorize before every show is that order and those pivots. If I get the pivots, like today, right? You can see the technique. Watch. Today it was the Huberman story, right? That was fake news. Then I used Glenn Greenwald's point about the Huberman story, and that pivoted right away into lack of trust and the bridge story. So that's how I do it, right? I only need about 6 or 7 of these pivots. I write them down, and I know what they are, and that's what I keep in my head to get from one stage to the other. So when I'm doing when we're talking, when I'm doing the monologue, I'm already thinking in my brain about where I'm headed. That's the destination. If I can get to that point and make that point, then I can move on to the next one. And then the next one comes into my head, and it's just rinse and repeat, right? Usually the point I'm driving to is something I already know really well inside and out, and then I could speak in an ad-lib manner about it. So if I can't keep that in my head, I literally get lost. I don't know where I am, and I can't do it. So anyway, now you know. What is the worst fear of 2024? It's a good question, Muslim Bitcoiner. It's my worst fear of 2024. I don't know if I have one, Muslim. I have to think about that. I'm far too bullish to be afraid of anything in 2024. My worst, I mean, the saddest thing is if they kill Trump. I mean, that would really be a problem to me. I mean, I don't even know, like, I love him, even though he wasn't necessarily my guy at the beginning of the campaign. And, I still have a problem with the Assange and Snowden and Ross thing. Taking New York subways, duh. Biden re-election. No, Dexter. I mean, honestly, when you read the Bitcoiner's Guide to the 2024 elections, for real, the Biden re-election is an accelerator. Like it's good for Bitcoin. You understand that, right? It might be the best. It might be the best. It might be. So, and I don't shy away from that in the book. So I'm not afraid of the Biden re-election. I would welcome it, just as I welcomed it in 2020. It sucks for people living in America, right? But I don't care. Like I, I'm a one-issue guy, right? The idea of Biden as president for another 4 years while he rots in front of us, while he actually will maybe lose body parts, like he might actually rot. And then look what it does every time these people have to go and say he's doing great. He's doing great. You know what it's done to Janet Yellen to watch that little pudgy gnome come out and say he's great? You know how great that is? I mean, we couldn't ask for more. As Bitcoiners, as an accelerationist, as someone who's into maximum Bitcoin standard as quick as possible, Biden is the guy. I mean, he's the guy. He is the guy. With Trump, he's too effective as the leader of a country. Like, had Trump won in 2020, we would not be where we are today with Bitcoin. Not even close. Our trust in institutions would be higher. All of that would be much bigger, right? So the idea of Biden again, now it's misery for a lot of people. So I'm not out here actively wishing for it. But if it happened, I would be able to be happy, right? Remember what Trump said, right? Life gives you lemonades and Joe Biden kills you with them. When he was talking about the Panera Bread lemonade, right? When I was president, the lemonade was so tasty. It was so good and the thirst quenching. And now that Joe Biden is president, the lemonade will kill you, all right? Everything is shit under Joe Biden. So look, in the accelerationist worldview, he really, the only one I wouldn't want is Hillary, because Hillary is like Trump. She might be effective at being the president, and she might be effective at choke pointing Bitcoin. So because she's much more capable than he is, she knows what she's doing. So there's that issue there. So she's the worst. She would be who I really wouldn't want around, but she'd be a great candidate. All right, that would be a lot of fun, watching Trump go against her again. But I more and more I think about it, the more and more I think it will be Biden. And again, if they cheat so much that he wins, it's good. Now, the damage he's already done is probably all the damage we need done to the Republic and fiat. Like, I think the damage is already done. The idea that the president is the leader of the free world should be dispelled from everyone's mind after Biden. It should have been done after Trump, right? When Trump couldn't get things done as president, when he couldn't even secure Washington, D.C., as a result of the January 6th thing. Now we know that he asked for all this help, right? He asked National Guard, he asked all these things, and they didn't give it to him because it was an op, right? It was an op. So because of that, he wasn't even able to secure the Washington, D.C., the precinct of the Capitol building. What kind of commander-in-chief is that? I think that should be proof positive that he was not the leader of the free world. We do not have civilian control of the military, and probably haven't since Kennedy died. So the way it happened with Trump was great. Now we know the president is not in charge, not the leader of the free world. Biden absolutely confirms that. There's it's laughable, right? Just say Joe Biden is the leader of the free world, and you got a punchline right there. That's a joke. Like, you can actually say that as a joke. And that's perfect. So we wouldn't have that if it wasn't for that. So I'm not afraid of that. No, I think the thing that would really be, the thing that would be tough is if they pop Trump and MAGA gets scattered to the wind, that someone like Vivek can't consolidate MAGA. I think Vivek is the spiritual heir to the MAGA constituency if he's killed, if Trump is killed. But I would hate to see that squandered. And it could be. You don't know he can take full charge of MAGA, right? And MAGA will just be inundated with psyops if they kill him. And it will be really messy. And I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So that's the kind of mess that I'm worried about. Because you're going to be able to trap people. Basically, you kill him, and everyone who rises up to fight and protest, there's going to be trouble, right? And so I think you could actually see the narrative where the nationalist extremist people are arrested and all that stuff. So that would be the worst. Now, I wouldn't go near America if that happened, right? I would abandon ship entirely. I'd lock the house and go somewhere else. But that's what we're coming to, right? We are afraid of nothing. Our job is to destroy evil, every day destroying evil. Yeah. We got to be warriors in all of this, right? This is a fight, and fear won't help us. So again, the only thing that actually shrouds my ability to predict where this is headed is the assassination. It creates too many radical, unpredictable outcomes that I can't with confidence say it's good, right? It's the chaos, the kind of chaos I don't think we want. So yeah, and he will have. Yeah, I mean, I just don't want him dying a martyr. Again, my wish for Trump, no matter what happens, I wanted this for him, even if he wasn't president. I want him to be able to go like he goes into the stadiums with the UFC, and they love him. He deserves that after what he's been through. I want him to be less active as president. I want a president chill this time around. So I want the president to be more like a king, kind of, right? Like, don't get that active. You don't have to be involved in every policy issue. You don't have to have an opinion on everything like the Obama days. Or this whole idea of the way the president job was created is really something we inherited from World War II, when they became the leader of the free world and had to have an opinion on everything that happened around the planet. That's a new thing, right? The president is supposed to be a quasi-monarch fella who mostly just sits and chills, and every 4 months has something to say about a national story or a national narrative, and sways public opinion subtly every now and again. That's what we need in America. We don't need a president involved in every little aspect of our lives. We want the saturation of politics to go away, right? So we don't want a very active president, and that's what I hope Trump embraces the next time around, and I think he will. I mean, well, I mean, look, my wish is Netflix and chill. Yeah. I mean, look, we're seeing that you can explain a lot of stupidity in the world by blackmail. And what he said about Trump in the 2020 election, because you remember, there is an interview with P. Diddy years ago when Trump just started. And P. Diddy says, Americans love this guy. He's like a boss. He's like, every African American looks at this guy and says, that's what a boss looks like, right? So they like him because he's a boss. And that was his original impression, right? And I don't think P. Diddy is stupid, right? We're not dealing with a stupid person here, right? We're dealing with a very smart person. And so for him to go from that opinion to the one that I shared in Moscow time today, where he said, that white men like Trump need to be banished, that's blackmail. That's not stupidity. That's not P. Diddy getting confused about who Trump is and believing he's a racist. That's none of those things, right? That story is P. Diddy being blackmailed by someone else to say what he said, right? Now you got to go say something about Trump, right? Go on, boy, say it about Trump now. That's what happened to P. Diddy. Now, it looks like he was heavily involved in this stuff. I don't know the details, but it makes sense. And I think the idea of blackmail being behind most of the retarded opinions you hear in public is, warned him of feds coming of him before. Yeah. I didn't catch the beginning of the show. Yeah, we jumped over at Quickie Side, Tony. I just, I read it. This guy controls the music industry. Exactly. Because remember, where did this P. Diddy come from? He was like a concert promoter who hung out with Notorious B.I.G., and then suddenly he does the "I'll Be Missing You" song and becomes a national icon, right? How did that happen? We know. So there you go. Scammer. All right, team. That's all I got for today. Thanks for coming. Sorry about the lack of sync, and